This episode is brought to you by LifeLock. The holidays mean more travel, more shopping, more time online, and more personal info in places that could expose you to identity theft. That's why LifeLock monitors millions of data points every second. If your identity is stolen, their US-based restoration specialist will fix it, guaranteed or your money back. Get more holiday fun and less holiday worry with LifeLock. Save up to 40% your first year. Visit LifeLock.com/podcast. Terms apply.
Support for this podcast comes from CDTA, The Eagle, a Times Union podcast driven by CDTA. Welcome to another episode of The Eagle, a Times Union podcast. I'm your host, Jessica Marshall. With the holiday season in full swing, we're in the mood for some festive music.
Oh, holy night, the stars are brightly shining.
That's Grammy-winning jazz artist Samara Joy. The 25-year-old rising star from New York has been making waves lately in the jazz world. She's pushing boundaries and introducing younger audiences to the genre. She got her start singing at home with family, who are accomplished professional gospel musicians in their own right, and she'll be taking the stage at the Egg on December 16th for a performance of holiday music with her father, her uncle, and her cousins. Samara Joy joins Times Union digital producer Niemra Coulibaly now on The Eagle.
I think you've been to the Capital Region before. I remember looking into you, and you've been over at like SPAC before, but this I think might be your first time performing at the Egg. What do you think about the area? What's like your first impressions of like the Capital Region?
I remember going there for the jazz festival actually too, and performing outside. And I remember it being really beautiful, especially after the concert. I think after the last act performed, there were like fireworks. I was like, oh, this is great. I never knew upstate was like this, But very, very celebratory, very community based. I love that.
I want to know more about like your experiences growing up in the Bronx and being like into music and theater, because I know you were also a theater person too growing up. So can you give a little bit background knowledge about that?
Growing up, I mean, I was already kind of surrounded by music because of my family. It was only I guess further input into my life, for lack of a better word, because of school programs and because of choir and musical theater and, having the opportunity to solo at different points. So it's like I was always surrounded by and influenced and a part of music growing up.
Did you always know that this was going to be your path, or was it something that you kind of just jumped into?
I knew I loved it from an early age because I was surrounded by it so much. I didn't know whether or not I would choose it as a path yet. I just knew that I loved doing it, and I loved performing. I loved singing. I felt like it was a perfect way to kind of express myself and also feel like I was closer to my family and we have something, to share. But I guess now looking back, it was always kind of what I was going to do. I didn't have my sights set on anything else other than being a part of music in some way.
With the show that you're doing at the Egg, you are going to be with your family, right? Is this going to be like the first time that you're performing live with your family? If so, like, how do you feel about that, especially during this holiday season when everybody's just like, gathered around the fire, just listening to like beautiful music in general? Like, how do you feel about sharing that stage with your musical family in general?
We always sing together, and we always, I guess, perform together in the living room, but getting the chance to perform on stage side by side and sort of present what we've known all along to people for the first time it's a blessing and it's a privilege.
Oh, wow. That's so beautiful, honestly. So I noticed like that you co-produced your last recent project that was dropped in October, right? Portrait. So can you talk more about like the process of like creating the arrangements for it? Because I know that was something that was very new for you. So can you speak to that experience?
Well, I'll say I'm really fortunate to have collaborated with such creative peers on this album. And I sort of lent part of, I guess, my learning about being a leader and learning how to guide or direct the sound and the vision that I want without being too overbearing and controlling about it is to trust the people around me to contribute and cultivate and help cultivate the sound with me. And so as far as arrangements went, I just chose the songs. I was like, these are the songs that I like singing. Only a dream to me you were, and then you slowly slipped away, an angel of the night. It was just a beautiful journey for me to get to open my ears up more for what I could do. Like the role of a vocalist does not just have to be sing the melody and then sing it again at the end of the song. I can be integral in the arrangement. I can be a part of the arrangement, and I have people around me who are willing to not only support me but also challenge me and help me grow. So time withers away, skies once blue turn to gray, each moment we're apart, one kiss too far.
I mean, I would love to learn more about how did it feel to be in the space, right, in jazz and be a person that's like really attracting a new generation of jazz listeners in general. Like, how do you feel about being that person? Because I know when I first got exposed to you, especially after you won the Grammy, I was just like, oh, she's awesome. Like, and it wasn't that I was never into jazz, but I was like, oh, this is a little different than what I'm used to. Like, I really could hear the difference in like the newness in your music. So how does it feel for you to be like kind of leading the charge and attracting a new generation of jazz listeners?
I'm grateful for it, because I didn't imagine ever being able to get to a point where I could change people's perception of a genre that they may not have been introduced to before. Because I wasn't introduced to it before. I first heard it when I got to college, and maybe there was a feeling of like, well, if I don't know anything about it, then maybe I don't have a place in it. But you can all of a sudden wake up one day and be like, I want to listen to jazz. I want to listen to rock. I want to listen to country music. It's never too late to, be interested in a genre, and as long as the music speaks to you in a certain way. So I'm glad that it spoke to me, and I just wanted to learn how to interpret it better in my own way. Now that people are joining on, and starting to love it as much as I do, and come to shows of mine and say, this is the first time I've ever seen a jazz concert. And having that be their first experience, one of my shows, is like, it's a beautiful thing, and it's just a reminder that, good music, it never dies.
That is so true. And really speaks to the type of music you're putting out there, because I'm telling you, it's very good. So like again, this is going to be a holiday show and it's going to be with your family. So do you guys have any like family holiday traditions that you guys engage in this time of year? And if so, like what does that look like for you?
Well, I'll say my older sister is the one who sort of institutes traditions and like, new things that we can all kind of do in order to grow closer together each year. And I had never participated in Secret Santa before going over to her house. And so that's one of the things that she's really like she feels very strongly about is Secret Santa, and like finding some sort of game to play together. At least three different games to play together, honestly. Like everybody has to participate. Nobody can sit in the corner and just like be quiet or anything. Like everybody has to be active when it comes to family gatherings and celebration, whether it's Secret Santa or playing games. So I feel like that's a major tradition every time we go to her house for Christmas.
Oh, that's so beautiful. Along your career, I'm pretty sure you've been around and seen a lot of like the greats, whether it be in jazz or just in music in general. Who is your favorite person that you've met so far or even collaborated, and why was that experience so like great for you?
Well, I feel like my generation can kind of be considered as being on the tail end of getting to meet some of these greats, referring to people who were like actively playing in like the 60s and 70s. And so when I got the chance to meet and learn from Barry Harris, he might have been 88 or 89 when I met him, and see the example of somebody who's lived their whole life for music, and has never wavered from their mission and from their, just because the music fuels them that much, their love for music and their love for sharing that with other people and for learning and for showing other people, look what I learned, at 89, look what I've learned. I want to share that with you. It's like a real blessing, because a lot of times, as I said, we're on the tail end of some of these greats, so they're passing away or have already passed away, and we have the legacy of their discography, but we never get the chance to see them in action right before our eyes. And so having that opportunity to learn from him directly and see how his mind works, and like witness somebody who is sharper than ever and still maintains a high level and a high quality of playing, and doesn't let any sort of, lack of, he had like a stroke and stuff like that, doesn't let his health get in the way of sending that message to people. Somebody who is like studied and like, performed and composed and has explored every nook and cranny and crevice and all that kind of stuff of music, and is still passionate about it, I feel like is one of the greatest examples of what it means to live a life of an artist.
So for our listeners, do you think that there's any surprises or anything in store for anybody that might be listening that's coming out to the show at the Egg?
One surprise is there's a new family song that we wrote together a couple months ago over Zoom. It was like 3 different Zoom sessions that we, just wanted to sort of operate in our gifts a little bit more, bring something different for this year, something that we worked on and we, poured our love into. It's a great song. I'm a little biased, but I love listening to it. I love singing it, and I can't wait for everybody to hear it, because we haven't recorded it.
Listen, that just sounds amazing. I'm not gonna lie, because I can't even imagine like being in a space like that and really being so creative with your family. So you're very, very lucky in that sense. So I think one of the last questions I would love to know, who are you listening to right now? Like, who's in your like playlist? I don't know if you've seen the Spotify Wrap, but like, who are you listening to?
Oh gosh, I have a lot. Okay, it really depends on the day. Just today, I was actually listening to Apple Music's Discovery Station. If it were up to me, I would listen to the same playlist of, whether it be D'Angelo or Layla Hathaway or Duke Ellington, Thad Jones. And so I just found a song by this trumpet player named Donald Byrd, and he recorded it with another baritone saxophonist named Pepper Adams. And they're kind of like my favorite sort of duo and frontline. It was called Each Time I Think of You. Literally just listened to that as I was doing my makeup. But earlier, you know what I'm trying to get into, honestly. On the album Portrait, I wrote lyrics to a song by Charles Mingus, who is known for being like kind of like a more avant-garde, classically influenced jazz composer and bassist. And his stuff is incredible. And there are some long form like suites that he wrote that are like 40 minutes long, and they kind of go through different movements and different, time signatures and changes and all that kind of stuff. And I know that that's influenced by classical music. So I guess what I'm trying to do now is listen to him and then listen to whatever classical influences that he pulled from, to see the correlation and see what changed, and what kind of stayed the same.
Amazing. I think my last question is just like, what should people just be like, looking forward to when it comes to the show in general? I know you talk about the special forces, but like, what would you say to all of our listeners who may be interested in coming to see your show?
I would say if you're looking to bring in the holiday season with energy and with family and with a sense of comfort and peace, but you also just want something refreshing with everything in the world that we've had to deal with, something refreshing and positive, then I think this is the show that you should come to, because there's something for everybody.
Oh, hear the angel voices, oh, night divine.
Samara Joy will perform A Joyful Holiday at the Egg Monday, December 16th at 7:30 p.m. That's it for this week. The Eagle is a production of the Times Union. It's produced and edited by myself, Jessica Marshall, with help from the Times Union digital team and the newsroom. Our music is Flyin' by Top Floor. Special thanks to Niemra Koulibaly for her contributions to this episode. Questions or comments? Email us at podcast@timesunion.com. Support for this podcast comes from CDTA, the Eagle, a Times Union podcast driven by CDTA.
Why is healthcare so expensive? What's happening with climate change? And are elections safe? You can find answers to those questions and a lot more with Capitol Confidential from me, Dan Clark. I give you the latest news and analysis from the state capitol and beyond. Sign up now at CapitolConfidential.com. That's Capital with an O, confidential.com.